Live streaming on YouTube, and by the way, available on over 45 podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Streaming in now 105 plus countries. I'll have to have our producer, Melissa Martin, update that number for me because I'm sure it's grown even in the last few weeks. But we are reaching an audience now globally here at the Tech Ed Podcast. And this week we happen to be reaching that audience live from the Association for Career Technical Education CareerTech Vision 2022 show in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's just an amazing organization. We've had a number of folks from ACTE join us over the course of today. So if you've been on with us all day, you already know about the great things that ACTE is doing. But there's a massive Career Tech Expo here, hundreds upon hundreds of concurrent learning sessions, 300 plus as a matter of fact, altogether. 400 plus presenters alone here at this conference, which is being attended by more than 6,000 people. And 200 plus exhibitors here in the Career Tech Expo as well. Just so much energy around career technical education here as we enjoy our time with you on the Tech Ed Podcast. My name is Matt Kirkner, of course, and I am your host for this and every episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. I'm always here. The guests change, and in this particular case, we have a great guest, and not just a great guest, but a really, really good personal friend of mine that I've been able to work with for several years on all kinds of initiatives. As people know when they tune into the Tech Ed Podcast, we are all about disruption in technical education. We're all about finding new ways to do things, not necessarily taking the old model and just finding a way to roll it forward, but what are the needs of industry? What are the needs of business? What are the needs of students? And how is the world of education changing? And then how do we change with it? Some educators stand still. The folks that are here at ACTE at this Career Tech Expo are the ones that are moving education forward. And I can think of nobody who is moving education forward as quickly as my friend Matt Janisin. Matt is the Vice President of Workforce Development at Gateway Technical College. His partner in crime, Brian Albrecht, has joined us on the podcast in the past, so people may be familiar with Brian's work. Brian will be on with us for one more episode before his official retirement from Gateway. So lots of changes going on at Gateway, but today we get to talk with Matt Janisin, Vice President of Workforce Development. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Matt, for the opportunity. It's great to be here. It's such great energy here at ACTE, and as you outlined, 6,000 participants. It is so energizing to see all of the, post-secondary, secondary, all the teachers that coming in, getting refreshed, getting new ideas to bring back to their classrooms, because as we know, the workforce is in such great need of all of these students coming out. So it's great to have this professional development opportunity for those teachers to be able to go back and deliver those skills that we need so badly.
Absolutely. As we look at the state of the American workforce, 11.5 million positions open here in the United States. That number may have moderated just a little bit in the last month or so, but not a ton. And so all of these open positions, and it's across the board. I mean, it is certainly manufacturing and advanced manufacturing. We talk about that a lot here on the Tech Ed Podcast. But really every single segment of our economy, almost without exception, is suffering from some version of a shortage of skilled talent. And so I want to talk about that in depth here today. Before we do that, just maybe I know you love to talk about Gateway. I love hearing about Gateway for our listeners that may not be perfectly familiar with all the great things happening there in Southeast Wisconsin. Tell us about Gateway Technical College and what makes you unique.
Yeah, so Gateway was founded in 1911, so we're 110 plus years old and going strong. It's great to be a technical college right now. I mean, there's never been a better time in really history, probably going back 100 years, of where the skills that we are providing and the demand from our local employers is so great. So we serve Racine, Kenosha, and Walworth County in southeast Wisconsin, as you mentioned, and Wisconsin as a whole and southeast Wisconsin has always been a major hub of manufacturing, but a lot of the skilled trades have come out of, the apprenticeship program was also founded in Wisconsin. So we're very fortunate to be part of, a very strong Wisconsin Technical College system. We're proud to be the first Wisconsin Technical College, as well as, the birthplace of apprenticeship in Wisconsin that has really propagated throughout the country now. But that all started in 1911, so we're trying to carry on that honored tradition.
Yeah, and so here we are 111, 112 years later, something like that, and you are indeed carrying on that great tradition. So many great firsts in Wisconsin. You mentioned the first Technical college, that Gateway is the first technical college in Wisconsin, the first apprenticeship program. We're also home to the first kindergarten. I don't know how many people realize that, but the kindergarten started in Wisconsin as well. So lots of great things happening all over the United States, but you and I are particularly proud of the great things that are happening in our home state of Wisconsin. If you think about the unique position of Gateway, a lot of people maybe don't recognize this, but if you look geographically, Chicago on the south end, and then maybe Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin on the north end, is one of the densest corridors, maybe the densest corridor of manufacturing and advanced manufacturing in the world. It is just a great place to be. My background in manufacturing, it was a great place to be servicing manufacturers. It's a great place to educate that next workforce, that next group of workforce talent. And Gateway is really located right at ground zero for that density of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, and now distribution. Huge focus on distribution.
Absolutely, yes.
Who are some of the employers that you're servicing, the nature of the types of jobs that you're filling, manufacturing, distribution, advanced manufacturing, and so on? Tell us about that.
Well, as you mentioned, such a great history, and a lot of the companies that we serve have been around as long as we have. So we all have grown up over the last century together.
Sure.
So, you look at the SC Johnsons, the Incinerators, the Modines, the Snap-ons. All of those were founded here. At one point in time, Racine, Wisconsin had more patents per capita than anywhere else on the planet.
Wow.
And people don't realize the innovation that came. The first vehicle, the Spark, was actually driven down the streets of Racine.
Wow.
So
cool.
Even a birthplace of really the automotive industry. Home to Chrysler Motors previously.
Sure.
So AMC, American Motors. So there's such a great history and legacy in a lot of different companies. But throughout Wisconsin, from the corridor you mentioned, going from Oshkosh Truck to Kohler.
Sure.
All those great companies that go up and down the lakeshore there.
Yep. Harley-Davidson.
Harley-Davidson. Yeah. Milwaukee itself has a huge history, obviously, of all of that.
There's just tons of them. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So very, very fascinating place that you're in, and you talk about some of the legacy companies and continuing to innovate, companies like SC Johnson, Snap-on, doing really not just huge historical manufacturers, but thinking about the future. You've also got some innovative additions to the area. You've got Haribo and their $300 million expansion that they just did. I've got a soft spot in my heart for gummy bears.
Absolutely.
So, who doesn't, right? So Haribo, a great example. You've got a huge Uline distribution facility. Amazon has
Amazon's
a
right there.
presence. So really kind of balancing the history of manufacturing and being the birthplace of so many of these technologies, all of those patents, all those advancements, and how we make things, how we create products, and then also looking to the future of manufacturing and distribution, a world that's changing at a really rapid rate as well.
And you mentioned that automation and all those companies that are growing into our area now, like Haribo. They're fully automated, right? You're going to make hundreds of millions of gummy bears,
right.
So you can't do that one by one with human hands. There's going to have a lot of automation, but the technology and the skill sets now that's going to take for the human being to keep all of that up and running and all up to code, right? So.
Well, and that's what we want to get into. We actually had Wes Saber, who's the executive vice president of Haribo, join us on the podcast a little over a year ago and talk all about this $300 million investment they're making in all of the advanced manufacturing technologies. You mentioned robotics, certainly mechatronics, smart technology, and then on the distribution side of it as well. That world is really, really evolving, and it kind of feels like, and I know you're an advocate for this, that our world of technical and community colleges need to be doing exactly the same thing. That if we keep delivering workforce training, advancements in educating a workforce, a student body that's moving into the workforce the same way we were doing 30 and 40, 50 years ago, that's not going to work. So let's kind of think about this. First of all, traditionally, how do you think that not just Gateway in general, but specifically, but colleges in general thought about workforce training and kind of set the stage, and then we'll talk about the evolution in a minute. But historically, how have we looked at workforce training for the incumbent workforce?
Well, I think the old model is that you go to elementary school, you go to middle school, you go to high school, and then you ended up picking a career. Hopefully, it's one you enjoyed. You went to college, you invested a bunch of time and money, and after that, you got your job. And that certainly isn't what we're seeing today. And honestly, when we look even at the last 20, 30 years at the Wisconsin Technical College system, that's not exactly what we saw from our students.
Right.
That was more of a university path student. So from a technical college perspective, a lot of times our students are closer to the age of 30. And they are going to bounce in and out depending on their job situation and family situation at the time. But also the part that we need to be perfectly aligned to business and industry. So, the academic programs, our technical diplomas and associate degrees, they can take some time to evolve, going through state processes and procedures. We are a pretty adaptive system, so we think we can do it quicker than most government bureaucracy education systems. But we also have an arm of the college, which is the arm that I kind of lead up, which is the workforce side, where we can do customized contract training with any local employer literally within days. So if an employer contacts us and said, we just hired a new fresh group of employees that fit our culture and everything, but they don't quite check all the boxes of the technical skills that they need, no problem. We can work with them, assess their new employees, look at what gaps there may be, come up with a customized training plan specific for them, and then be on site and deliver that at their place, again, literally within days. We try to react at the speed of business.
So, and that really is a unique aspect of the work that you do. We've already had a couple conversations here today at ACTE with folks that work, knee deep in the education world. And I always joke that, and I've said it probably 2 or 3 times already today, my days of manufacturing, you make a decision Monday, implement it on Wednesday, and you can see the results on Friday.
Yeah.
And manufacturers expect education to move at that same pace. And to your point, one of the things that I learned when I moved over to the education side is that for a lot of reasons, it doesn't always, and in some cases can't, move at that pace. You do have regulations, requirements, some bureaucracy depending on the state, a little bit of red tape.
Yep.
Politics can get involved sometimes.
They certainly can.
Right?
Yep.
So you have all these different influencers on how quickly we can move. You don't necessarily have those constraints on the workplace side, and so on the workforce training side. So literally you can move at that speed, and you have to, right? I mean, if we're going to create this next generation of a workforce, we have to be able to move at the pace that workforce and the needs of the employers are changing.
Absolutely. And the nice thing is, what may start on the workforce side as a adult continuing ed, quote, non-credit kind of situation, if it becomes very popular with multiple employees, there's nothing that says over time that can't turn into an official certificate, technical diploma, associate degree. So, I mean, there's plenty of ways. It's not linear, and it probably can't be in today's very adaptable, highly flexible world.
Right.
But, we kind of like to think of ourselves as the skunk works. If there's an idea that's maybe a little outside of the educational academic box, let's go try it, let's go pilot it, let's see what business and industry thinks. Maybe we won't get it right the first time, but with a few iterations and feedback, we'll have it pretty polished where then it may be ready to go into a full program and then benefit the community at a larger scale.
Absolutely, and being able to combine the best of all worlds, right? So you and I have worked on some projects separate from the Tech Ed podcast where, you can have an industrial employer that's got a large incumbent workforce, and you look at that group of people, and some of them should be on a pathway toward an associate degree. And for instance, mechatronics, electromechanical technology, Industry 4.0, advanced manufacturing. Some of them may be a tech diploma. Maybe 2 semesters of training is more appropriate. Some of them might just be a third-party certification. I know you've been really involved with NC3 over the course of your career, done some really cool things there. As you know, I've got a solid relationship with SACA, doing some cool things with the Smart Automation Certification Alliance. So third-party credentials can play into that. And we've seen being able to mix the best of both worlds. So I have an incumbent employee, and somebody should be on a associate degree pathway, somebody on a tech diploma pathway, somebody earning a third-party certification.
Right.
Maybe somebody just, hey, I need to brush up a little bit on programmable logic controllers or on changes in variable frequency drives, and we can put them in a course like that. I know another one of the things, Matt, that you've been really, really involved with are some innovative approaches in partnering with some interesting organizations and even an iconic rock band in one case. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But let's start with Rockwell Automation. Blake Moret is the chairman and CEO of Rockwell. Tech Ed Podcast had the pleasure of being the official education podcast at Automation Fair just a couple short weeks ago in Chicago, and we were live streaming on YouTube the whole week and recorded some great episodes with some of Rockwell's partners. You have a pretty unique partnership with Rockwell Automation as well. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, we're very fortunate to have Rockwell, in Wisconsin, so just north of us in Milwaukee, and they've been great supporters of ours, and for a long time that we've taught their product. So their programmable logic controllers and their ladder logic. All of that's been very beneficial because our students need that as they go out into business and industry. A lot of our local manufacturers are obviously using Rockwell and Allen Bradley products. But we had the great fortune to partner with them more closely. And Rockwell for a long time have had an Academy of Advanced Manufacturing, which was kind of a boot camp style program that they put together for veterans to get people from eventually zero automation experience to kind of hero in a very short time and get them out to help their customers, because like any product producer, if you don't have people who know how to use it, it's tough to keep selling those products, right? So how can they support their customers with their greatest need, which is the workforce thing that you and I have been talking about? So they wanted to expand that and do more with that. So in that case, they approached Gateway, and we worked with them to see what that would look like at a technical college, because if we could do it at one technical community college, if Rockwell chooses, they can now expand this to all 1,500 or so community or technical colleges. So we worked with them, looked at their curriculum, see what kind of matched what we already had, developed a few new classes that would fill in some of those gaps, and ultimately for us, it gave us another level of menu that our local community can choose from. So we have our 2-year associate degree in advanced manufacturing,
right.
A little bit more of an engineering slant. So a lot of students will choose that, as you mentioned, if that's the path they want. We have a 1-year technical diploma, our electrical mechanical maintenance technician.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a lot of overlap between those two, but that's a little bit more of the industrial maintenance technician slant. But then there are some people that just don't have time for even a 1-year or a 2-year degree.
Sure.
And for our students, where 85+% of them are actually part-time,
mm-hmm.
You can multiply that by 2 or 3 on the number of years for them to actually complete it. So we wanted to give another option for our community as well as our employers, and the Rockwell AAM program allowed us to do that. So at Gateway, it looks like a 14-week boot camp. So 14-week is one of our normal semester lengths. It's essentially 40 hours a week, not quite, but you're going 5 days a week,
okay.
More or less 8 hours a day, and you are getting all of that Rockwell automation, also integrated into robotics and just other mechanical aptitudes, where you are going to come out and be that highly sought after automation technician, mechatronics technician at the end. And we've seen some great success with that. One of our students actually came out, again, had no automation experience. That entire program for that semester is 22 credits. You get an advanced manufacturing specialist certificate from Gateway. It costs about $4,500.
Mm-hmm.
So it's relatively affordable, very
Sure.
short. And he came out and actually ended up, unfortunately, he moved to one of the Carolinas. I think it was North Carolina,
okay.
but making $30 an hour.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was a big transition in his life from
sure.
where he was to now where he ended up. But again, it allows that progression. So if he wanted to come back and then continue on to the 1-year diploma, the 2-year associate degree, he could. But we also leveraged, to your point, we are very fortunate to be a Metallica Scholars School. So yeah, the rock band Metallica,
right?
Is supporting technical education across the United States. We are one of the first 10 community technical colleges to receive a support from them about 4 years ago. They've continued that support, so that is providing the tuition coverage for students now to come and do that. And we just recently had a graduate go through that program, ended it last December, so about a year ago now. He's working at CareerTech, one of our local companies, very highly automated. So it's a company, again, that most people probably haven't heard of, but if you're drinking a Starbucks coffee or if you're eating fries out of a McDonald's fry holder, they make all those type of paper products, and millions at a time.
Wow.
So he is now one of their automation technicians and engineers.
Sure.
And is doing fantastic. It's been a great story for him and his family. Again, had no manufacturing background or automation experience, but wanted to change from where he was at, wanted to provide for his family better, and he's got a great story on how that has transformed his life, but not just for him, but for his family and kids too. So it's been very touching, and we love to be able to change lives like that.
And that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Is, right? Changing the life of an individual, of their family. I kind of feel like we should roll into a commercial break and play Enter Sandman or Fade to Black, right, by Metallica.
Absolutely,
right now.
yeah.
Just about perfect for the bumper music. But we'll keep going here with Matt Janisin. You dug into a couple things, Matt, that I think were really interesting there. You think about this program with Rockwell Automation and their willingness to make an investment and build a partnership with Gateway, your willingness to find ways to be flexible, to deliver exactly what they were looking for, and then the results of that. So you think about a student, or in this case, a student of that program, 14 weeks, one semester, a $4,500 investment, depending on where you are in life, is could be a big number, maybe not such a big number, but relative to $30 an hour on the way out. I mean, think about spending one semester and starting with a certain set of skills, having no automation experience and then graduating from that program and moving on to what comes next. In this case, a salary that just, even without overtime is $63,000 in a year, and in this environment, probably $70,000 to $75,000 with the overtime that people are getting in the world of manufacturing. What a total game changer! And those are the kind of stories that I think, don't always get enough voice in the world of technical education. As we think about our community colleges, our technical colleges here in the United States, you mentioned that the average age, and this was something that surprised me 7-8 years ago, and now I'm used to talking about it. But you think about a community college student as somebody that decided on that path as an alternative to going direct to workforce or going into the military or maybe pursuing a 4-year degree. So if you had asked me what's the average age of a student, and I would have guessed, I don't know, 21, 20, 22 years old. And in many cases, and it's really true of our community and technical colleges across the United States, closer to 28, 29, 30. Economic factors have a little bit to do with that sometimes too.
25 to 35 is that sweet spot.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
that's where we see them.
Absolutely, and a lot of those are individuals, by the way, that maybe selected a pathway like a 4-year degree that for whatever reason that didn't get them where they needed to be or wasn't right for them, and then they come back. So really shows the importance of kind of considering all the options for education and delivering all these options. Of course, I love the Metallica story. It's another great example. We've actually been talking with the All in Your Hands Foundation about I want to get James Hetfield on the podcast, so he's just that's one of my goals for the next 12 months. We'll see if we can figure that out. So let's talk about a couple other things. You've got some really interesting approaches when we think about workforce development, when we think about the non-credit side of a technical or community college. We're typically not thinking necessarily about K-8 or K-12 partnerships.
Right.
You see it a little bit differently. So talk to me about how the relationships with, for instance, a high school, maybe even a middle school or an elementary school program, and the work that you're doing in workforce, how do they play together?
Yeah, so I mean, Gateway as a whole, we have a great partnership with our local K-12 systems, and we have a whole division department at the college that focuses on those dual credit at the high school. So when you look at the 9-12 grade area, I mean, we had over 6,000 students last academic year take dual credit with Gateway, all free of charge to the students. So that saved the students and their parents over $4.7 million over the course of that year. Gets them on a fast track to go to Gateway, get out to work sooner, save money and time. So then that I love telling that story, but that's not what my team's role is in that. So, but what we really kind of as a college looked at, and from a workforce development standpoint, right? That's my area that I need to oversee. We know where the next generation of workforce is. I mean, they're not just in the high school; they're in the 4K or K-12 system. So, what are we doing for the K-8 area? And part of it is when you're going to start to partner with, elementary schools, and that's what my team actually does. We have 2 individuals that are kind of linked to our Fab Lab that go out and they partner and co-teach with elementary school teachers. We want them to view the community technical college as a resource that can help them deliver some really cool, hands-on, contextual content to why learning math and learning reading and learning, different things are going to help them to be able to show the relevance of that. And also, we just don't want students to, start picking or excluding potential career options because they don't really know what it is.
Sure.
So everything from taking a little very easily manipulated blue robot that we can program to build a s'more, so a little graham cracker, chocolate marshmallow graham cracker. You get, again, a kindergartner, first grade, second grader to be able to program that, build that, get a little treat at the end of it. That gets them interested in robotics. And then they might be in FIRST robotics or a sumo bot when they get, into middle school or high school. And again, all of that will start to build, but they've never had that opportunity or that experience. And by no fault of a lot of our elementary educators, they weren't given that teaching.
How would they know, right?
They would have never known. And again, they probably don't have a lot of experience with a community or technical college. I mean, they went to high school, they went to college, and they kind of went back to elementary school. I mean, I was a high school teacher before that, so the same could be said for me, really. So if you didn't have that experience, how can we view them? How can they have us, have them view us as a partner where we can go out and help and co-teach with them. No teacher's going to go and teach anything that they're not comfortable or confident in. So if we can go and empower them to be able to do that, and you see those kids' faces light up when they're doing something cool and they're building and they're creating and they're making little electrical circuits that light up a light bulb. I mean, those are things that students enjoy, and they start to see that tangible effect, that sense of pride that they created something, they built something, they designed something, they 3D printed something. We have the opportunity to be able to not just provide that technical expertise in people, but we can bring out the equipment. So, we have a mobile lab that we take out. We can bring in a laser engraver, a 3D printer, some tabletop CNC, so that way if you don't have that type of equipment, that's okay.
Sure.
Gateway's here to support and help you with that.
That's awesome. You think about the way we plan in business, right? So you look forward, here we are in 2022. In the business world, especially maybe when you get a little bit older, years like 2025, 2030, they don't seem that far away, right? I mean, it'll be about honest, quicker than we can guess, right? I mean, you think about some of the things we were talking about doing 8 years ago that we're now doing in education, and 2020, 30 is going to come really quickly. Well, that this high school senior or that 19-year-old of 2030 is in 4th grade today.
Absolutely.
And it's really, and so we really do have to dig back that deep, that if we're going to have a workforce that we need in 2030, we need to be looking back to middle school and even before providing these types of experiences. I think we have time for probably 2 more questions here, Matt. And the one that I want to touch on, I'll give you an example. My wife, Renee.
Yeah.
And Renee, one of the things that she's really passionate about is this whole world of corrections and reentry, and the whole idea that somebody who's been incarcerated, their likelihood of reoffending drops precipitously, in fact exponentially, if they have a marketable skill that they can put to work when they're finished serving their time. And she had an individual that was in a actually a corrections facility in Wisconsin she was visiting with, and he was learning mechatronics and electromechanical technology, and they were just chatting, and he was about, I think, 6 months from getting out, and he said, "This is the first time in my entire life that I've actually had hope." Which is just, you think about the power of that. I know you're doing a ton of really innovative stuff on the correction side, taking people that were on a different path or trying to get a new lease on life, a new opportunity, put themselves on the right trajectory. Talk a little bit about corrections. We probably have a minute or so for that.
Sure.
Answer.
Well, we're doing quite a bit, and it's one of those where you don't ever want to provide false hopes. You want to make sure that whatever career path you put them on, that they're not going to be blocked from that career path after release. So we do a lot of that vetting up front, working with our local employers. We do a lot in the area of CNC. Computer numerical control, CNC operator. So we do a couple different programs. We do 2 that are on site. So this is minimum security facilities, 1 woman's facility, Ellsworth Correctional Facility, and then 1 men's facility in Kenosha County Correction. They both come to the IMET. They earn their CNC operator certificate. They are so diligent. We always say it's maybe their second chance, but honestly, when you hear some of their stories, this might have been their first chance, really. And to your point, they are so thankful for that opportunity to now provide for their family like they never could before, and do that. And we have a lot of employers now that maybe historically wouldn't have looked at this pool of talent, but because of our current labor situation, they have, and they're so pleasantly surprised on what they are finding out and the quality of people that they found. We've been doing this now for a number of years, especially with our women's Ellsworth facility, where we have some of who've been released, and we're CNC operators, but now are promoted and are actually supervisors and managers and have gone on to become mechatronics and industrial. And they come back and tell their story, and it gives hope to that next generation.
It's huge inspiration. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. If we had more time, I've got a bunch of stories from my manufacturing days too of folks that had re-entered the workforce after serving time, and not every one of them was a success, but we had a number that certainly were, and they're really, really touching stories. So speaking of touching stories, one of the things I love asking all of our guests here on the Tech Ed podcast, and we'll close with this last question for Matt Janisin, the Vice President of Workforce Development at Gateway Technical College. If you had one piece of advice, Matt, for a high school sophomore, a student who is a 15 or 16-year-old looking at their whole life in front of them, what would that piece of advice be?
I'd be open to the opportunities. I mean, there is so much opportunity right now for anybody who's wanting to enter the workforce. I mean, there are so many great jobs that will never get stale and that will never go away. If you just, again, it almost sounds cliche, but if you're working hard and really find that passion that you're interested in, I mean, the world is going to be your oyster. I mean, we've talked about it before a lot, Matt.
Right.
Demographics are not looking good for the next at least 20 years.
Right, exactly.
So we need people. So whether that's an electrician, that's a plumber, that's a lawyer, that's a doctor, that's an automation technician, robotics, if there's something that you can find that you can be very good at, and the more that you enjoy it, the more you want to become a master of it, if you can get to that point, there will be plenty of opportunities for you. And whatever you start with doesn't mean you have to finish with it. So things are going to evolve and grow. So, get those baseline good technical skills, and you are going to be able to pick your path going forward.
Absolutely, and you think about all the students that you have picking their paths going forward, Matt, and thanks in huge part to your leadership and the work of the great people at Gateway Technical College. Thanks for that work, and thanks for joining us on the Tech Ed Podcast.
We couldn't do it without partners like Lab Midwest and yourself, Matt.